Sorry. I would like to welcome new members and returning members to the Commission's first meeting of the new fiscal year. I would also like to welcome any members of the public to this meeting. This meeting is being live streamed via the Council's YouTube channel as a trial. Please note that there is no comments function available on YouTube. You should be aware that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Data collected during the webcast will be retained in accordance to the Council's published retention policy. Any members of the public seated in the public gallery may be filmed by the automated camera system and your image may be captured. Therefore, by entering the meeting room, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of these images and sound recordings for webcasting or training purposes. Councillors are reminded to take note of what is displayed on the screen in the room, as these show what is being recorded. Please can councillors remain seated when speaking, as the cameras are currently set to capture seated positions. Please do not move the microphones too close to you. You can request to speak as usual in the committees by raising your hand. To speak by pressing the button with the face on it, and the microphone will go green when you are live. For those in the building, there are no scheduled fire drills tonight. So in the event of a fire alarm activation, please leave the building. The main route is via the spiral staircase and through the main entrance doors. Should this route not be accessible, the secondary route is via the main spiral staircase across the contact centre and through the doors. Once outside, make your way to the fire assembly point located beyond the multi-storey car park entrance in Exchange Road. If you are unable to use the stairs, please wait in the chamber and you will be guided by a member of staff to the evacuation lift. I would like to request all mobile phones to be put on silent and put away, and can everyone please talk into the microphones. The agenda papers for this meeting are available on the Council's website and will now commence with apologies for absence. Apologies for absence. Have we received any?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Adderley.
Thank you. Are there any disclosure or whipping declarations? Councillor Lanza.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, on items 5 and 6, I declare a personal interest as a member of West Sussex County Council and Cabinet Member for Public Health and Wellbeing.
Thank you. Councillor Helia.
Yes, I'm NHS Public Governor, so...
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Are the minutes of the last meeting held on the 11th of March approved as a correct record? Do we agree? Agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Right, public question times. We have 15 minutes of public question time. In line with the Council's constitution, any questions must be in line and relevant with the items on tonight's agenda. Do we have any members of the public present who wish to ask any questions? We will now move on to consideration of the report on tonight's agenda. We will start with the Staff Welfare and Sickness Update Report. I will shortly ask the officers to introduce themselves and the report to the Commission. Previously, the Commission has received reports on staff sickness levels and wellbeing. The Commission since recommended that it receive an annual update on employee welfare and sickness and morale. I will now ask Suraj Chowdhury, Head of the Governance and People and Performance, and Joe Mottershead, HR Consultant, to present their report. Thank you.
So first off, I just wanted to send my apologies from Karen Burton, who's the HR and OD manager, who can't be here today because she's on annual leave. So as just mentioned, this is providing an update on the council's health, wellbeing and sickness levels for the last year. We presented a similar report this time last year, so this report is just following up and provides an update on that, in terms of what's been going on from our perspective since the last report. So the current situation in regards to sickness with Crawley Borough Council employees. The top three reasons for absence for the financial year 23-24 focused on or were stress, depression and mental health at 29%, operations, post-operations and hospital appointments at 12%, and other musculoskeletal at 11%, but it needs to be noted that that doesn't include back-related issues. In terms of comparing this to reasons for last year, it remains consistent other than the fact that COVID has dropped out of the top three, and that's been replaced by the operations, post-operations and hospital appointments. So moving on to COVID, for the last quarter of 23-24, so that's quarter four, we had 7 people that reported a positive COVID test, which was a significant decrease in the number who reported positive COVID tests for the same period in the preceding financial year. In terms of flu vaccination programme, that's been successful in uptake, and we're going to be running the programme again at the end of this summer, so around sort of August, September time. So moving on to 4.5, so that's support of the workforce. So we've continued to offer the support in line with our learning and development programme. Due to the cost of living still having a significant impact on the workforce, we've continued to place a significant focus on financial wellbeing and provided workshops on this topic to help employees better understand their relationship with money. They provided strategies and tactics to improve financial habits. Other guidance has looked at financial planning and practical knowledge on the key elements of managing everyday finances, such as budgeting, managing debt, and seeking support when people are struggling. In terms of our people managers and aspiring managers programme, we have almost completed our full rollout of suite of essential training sessions for current managers, as outlined in 4.7 of our report. We're going to continue to offer these sessions to new managers who join the council in the future, and this programme will be developed in order to incorporate other people management responsibilities. Additionally, going forward, HR and OD will be developing a core training for all staff working for the council. We also work in conjunction with Sussex Training Consortium, who are a local government organisation providing over 10 years of experience in terms of training programmes. So we are a key member of Sussex Training Consortium, and we promote sort of courses to all employees, when they start employment, or if there is some elements of training that they require, we sort of liaise with Sussex Training Consortium to see what is on offer. But in relation to mental health and wellbeing, again in 4.7 at the bottom, there's a list of the significant training courses that we promote and encourage staff to use as and when required. So to align with essential training for managers, a review of several of the people-related policies and procedures is currently taking place. suite of document has been developed to support the reviewed policies, not just for managers, but for the employees that may be involved in those processes as well. So they have a clear understanding of what that process and procedure encompasses. During the week commencing the 11th of March, to sort of promote mental health, we undertook a wellbeing week here at the Town Hall and at Metcalfe Depot, which covered a various degree of topics associated with health, wellbeing and staff. I won't go into it, but there's a list in 4.8 which just outlines the some of the topics that we covered during that week. We did feel that it was quite successful, especially at the depot, Metcalfe Depot. The staff were really grateful, and there was sort of huge interest at the depot in terms of the topics that were covered there as well. To promote our wellbeing toolkit was one of the reasons why we wanted to initiate that wellbeing week, and that was launched in March, and that covers support for managers and employees on mental health, menopause and domestic violence. So it just gives them sort of some idea of sort of practical tips and support and guidance and signposting if they ever experience those three topics. We've also promoted through the staff global emails a number of mental health initiatives that have been launched both nationally and globally. For example, World Mental Health Day, World Suicide Prevention Day. So we've used those emails to promote what we're doing within the council around mental health, promoted training that we've got through the CBC Learning Portal, which is our online learning programme, and also Sussex Training Consortium. We also promote Able Futures, which is a government-funded organisation which provides mental health support for those that are in employment. It's a 9-month programme designed to support, as it says, employees that are in work if they are struggling in the workplace. We've also launched in December 23 our lone worker devices, which have been rolled out to a total of 277 employees so far. So these devices, known as SOS fobs, are connected to a Safe Hub lone worker protection system, and the purpose of these devices is for an employee to alert an operative at an alarm receiving centre if they feel or are at risk while lone working. The device has motion and shock sensors, so if somebody were to fall or have an accident, the alarm receiving centre would automatically receive a call from to their device to establish if that individual requires help or assistance. So moving on to our counselling service, which is provided by Horsham and Crawley counselling service. We have seen a slight decrease in the number of its workforce taking up this service in the last year. The counselling service have also offered a reflective practice programme for managers, which has recently been reviewed in order to gauge success, as well as how the service can be further promoted to encourage participation across the council. Those who have been involved in those reflective practice sessions have reported positive experiences. The purpose of the reflective practices is to provide a neutral holding space for managers and teams to reflect, slow down, explore possibilities and sustain their resilience and well-being at work. So in terms of point 5.1, employees working in the office environment, all employees have now successfully settled into the new town hall. Following the move, employees' views were sought to identify their early impressions of working in the building and of the significant number of improvements which have been made. Again, in 5.1, there's just the top 5 improvements which we feel have been made as a result of that feedback received from the survey. In relation to the Create building, all staff have completed a revised fire evacuation training video. This is to reflect the fact that we've got some new commercial tenants that have either arrived or will be arriving in the future, in the form of British Airways Holiday on the 8th floor, Chubb on the 7th floor, and Varian Medical Systems on the 6th floor, who moved in week commencing the 6th of May. So moving on to point 7, the transformation plan. The Our People section of the Council's transformation plan emphasises its focus on improving processes and culture in relation to recruitment and retention, well-being and learning. The Council is also committed to providing managers and employees with the right tools for the job by improving HR technology and digital systems. So at the moment we are currently looking at our HR and payroll system to make it more digital, so that from when somebody starts by applying for a vacancy on our internet site through to leaving the council, it all hopefully will become streamlined so that all the systems will work with each other, rather than having sort of at the moment it can be a bit clunky. So that's something we're working on at the moment to improve that, not just for the candidate but for the managers and employees as well. So the next steps for the council is to continue to provide learning and development and support workshops appropriately to the needs of the employee and service delivery. To continue to raise the profile of support available to employees regarding mental health, well-being and financial health. Actively encourage and support those who may face challenges with their mental health by suggesting various offers in place or highlighting external agencies, and to carry on providing a range of well-being initiatives to the requirements of the workforce. So that concludes the report. Has anyone got any questions?
Right, Councillor Asif.
Thank you very much. A good detailed report. Good to know that CBC have taking a proactive approach, and there are preventive measures in place as well for the welfare of our employees. One thing I would like to ask, is there any way we can sort of quantify these absences? Can we put a sort of cost to it? How much these absences are costing to CBC?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe it will be useful going forward. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have prepared that, as I thought that might be one of the questions that we get asked. So just bear with me a second. Right, got it. So for the last financial year, the total cost to the council for all absences was £658,793.34. Comparing that to last year, which was the previous one, financial year to 22-23, that totalled £5,302.08 £532,008.09. So there has been an increase of about 130. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Hillier.
Thank you, Chair. I thank you for that. I have a couple of questions, really.
Yeah.
One of them is we held a wellbeing week and wellbeing sessions. What's the actual numbers involved in staff sort of taking these up? Is it a big number or is it relatively small?
I think it's difficult to quantify because we didn't necessarily have like an attendance list per se. But I know the attendance at the Metcalfe depot was quite was higher than necessarily the town hall. I would say the town hall wasn't as much as we wanted, but I think what plays a part in that is in terms of the hybrid working, really, in terms of not everyone being at the town hall 5 days a week. So it just really it's difficult to get everyone, I suppose, at that time, really.
Thank you. It would be useful because I mean, if we know, I mean, if there's just one or two people, then it seems like a high cost thing to do. Albeit, obviously, we're concerned about the health and well-being of our staff, but I'm sure that it ought to be something that we kind of look at to see, is it a viable thing to do? So, I'd certainly be interested in the numbers side of it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
And also in 4.12, there was a decline in the workforce taking up the counselling services, which to me could go hand in hand with my previous question.
Yeah.
And again, numbers related to that would be quite useful.
Yeah, so the uptake for the last financial year, 23-24, was 31 referrals were received, of which 13 of those requested further extensions. So compared to that, to the previous financial year, 22-23, where we had 34 referrals, and of those 34, there was the 10 had requested further extensions. So the numbers were, whilst they have decreased, it's very minimal decrease. So yeah.
Okay. So we don't know really how many sort of take advantage of the support and the things that we have on offer, really. Anywhere, is there anything in the system that flags up?
Yeah, I think that's something that we're going to be looking into in terms of the HR system work that we're doing, because our systems don't necessarily at the moment speak to each other, but in terms of that as well as they could do. But I think if we've got a new HR system, it would make getting data and stats together sort of easier to collate, really.
I think for me, certainly, and I don't know about other people's on Scrutiny, and perhaps they might say something, but it's a high cost. So it's 658k that we've got in terms of the cost to the council on absences. Is it on a few number of people, or is it on a lot of number of people? And I do think perhaps we need to get closer to that, given the costs to the council, because it is quite significant.
Yeah. I think in terms of, because I sort of deal with employee relations as well, so like long-term absences, and I think some of the stats are impacted by long-term absence. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily, if we've got like half a dozen people off, for example, that will increase the stats than if we had minimum number of people off with short term. But I suppose I hear what you're saying around the numbers, so we can see if we can get that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to see the amount of support on offer for the workforce, and thought it was a helpful report. I guess following the last question on sort of monitoring and evaluation of the absences, it'd be useful to understand whether you measure staff well-being broken down by protected characteristic. It'd be helpful to know whether there are certain groups of people within the council who are more kind of adversely affected, and therefore we could kind of tailor provision towards those particular groups.
Yeah, I can. I don't have that information with me today, but I can go away and get that collated and sent sent to the committee. That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello everyone. I do remember this report. I've been on this committee for a few years now, so I do remember the previous report. And it's always good to have an update. It's always good to know how much work that this council does do to make sure that the staff who are implementing our policies are well protected, well looked after, and have good terms and conditions. One things that I do want to ask is, I noticed in the report that the cost of living was mentioned, and some staff were really affected by that, and I wanted to ask about the content of the training sessions of those cost of living sessions that were put on. So could you go into more detail about the content if you're allowed to? And I also want to ask, how often is this content reviewed and updated? So can I have an answer? Thank you.
The simple question is, I'm going to have to look into that because it's not something that our team, or the HR team specifically deliver. It's dealt with by somebody else, so I'll have to have get that information shared to the committee after this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have 3 questions to raise, really. One on the mental health aspect of it being the highest top reason for staff absences, and then one linking to Councillor Khan's question on the financial wellbeing workshops, and one point on the rise in abusive behaviour to staff. But for the top reason of staff absences, we say it's stress, mental health, depression. It's almost a third, which the report says is consistent with last year. It seems quite high, but probably not unusual for most organisations.
Yeah.
I just wondered whether there are any common themes or causes of stress or mental health that we know about from staff. Because what I'm trying to get to is there anything in particular that is unique to working at CBC that has caused this 29% of staff absences due to stress, mental health and depression? Do you want to take that and then I'll come on to the other two questions?
I mean, in terms of, I don't think it's specific to CBC. I think it's a national issue in terms of mental health. Whether it's stress, whether it's non-work related stress or personal stress. That's why obviously we're looking, we've had that wellbeing week and we're looking to promote, mental health resources that we've got across the council, more really. I mean, I'm a mental health first aider myself, and I'm always promoting it to managers, going to, heads of services. The difficulty we've got is that obviously, people need to be coming to us and knowing it's out there is one thing, but getting people to come to us is another thing, really.
Yeah, I think that's spot on, and it links to Councillor Hellier's question around the kind of take-up of these initiatives, because the range of training that we have on offer and the initiatives nationwide and locally are amazing. It's just about whether the take-up is there and people are actually utilising it. And the question also about the counselling service and the decrease in usage of that was, it's not surprising, because as we know, it can be quite a taboo thing and there can be some stigma around it to actually ask for help. So I think the takeaway from me to impart on you is just to try and do as much as possible to ensure that staff do feel supported and take that way, that there is support out there for them, and that they should be able to speak up with some confidence if they can. And hopefully when we have this report next year, we can see a decrease in that 29%. On the financial wellbeing workshops, similar to what Councillor Khan mentioned, I was just wondering who delivers that, but obviously from what you said, you may not have that to hand, because I was really wondering whether we're actually partnering with any financial institutions and banks and water experts in the field, because there's some great stuff in there around tactics about improving financial habits and financial planning and managing financing, budgeting, managing debt and that kind of stuff. But one thing I would really like to see as part of that package is to look at anything around strategies to help people to actually grow long-term wealth to help them later on in life, because I think that's really important, and some emphasis on some of the avenues out there to help people to invest in money where they can build that wealth, things like stocks and shares, ISAs, that kind of thing I think would be really helpful. And I think sometimes people don't know what is actually out there and what they can do, even by parking aside maybe £100 a month towards investing in something that can help them substantially longer term. So I think that's just another thing I'd like to be taken away. Final point on the rise in abusive behaviour to staff, that was really worrying. And I noticed there was the interim measures about providing an SI trained officer in the reception. Just wanted to know how that's going, and it says it's an interim measure. Is there any further plans to ensure that staff are well protected, and that no one who's working in a front-facing role should be subject to any kind of abuse? Because as we know, our staff are there really to help the people of this town.
It's probably one for me to take that one. I think once upon a time, not so long ago, we'd see something abusive towards staff about once every 6 weeks. It's now a weekly, if not more frequent, event. So there has been a significant change in the last couple of years, and even within the last few months. So we're also seeing a return to the contact centre, so people preferring to come face to face rather than by phone or email. So there's a lot more, and as we're aware, housing crisis, people really in need, under pressure, and always not necessarily getting the outcomes they want. It's a difficult one. We've been watching this closely for a while. We didn't necessarily want to get to a point where we had a security guard on the front door, for a whole heap of reasons. Not least, we're a public service, and that's not the message we wanted to give out. And it's not a security guard on the door. This is someone that's actually trained to intervene, to de-escalate, etc., but looks different from a floor walker. It has worked. In fact, even within a couple of days of actually putting it in, there was another incident, and they were able to de-escalate it. So we're now at a stage, unfortunately, where we need that intervention downstairs. The question is how we best do that. Because obviously it's a single person, and they're not utilised all the time. So is there a way where we can have someone who has that training, but is also up to speed on some of the services that we provide, etc., so they can help residents as they come in? And we're just trying to, that's not a natural fit actually, and we're trying to work out what that looks like at the end. But the intervention has worked. I don't see the situation improving. The reality is, and I know this from speaking to long-term customers, those who've had difficult relationships with the council over the years because of different reasons, they feel much better coming into the new reception. It's light, it's airy, it's not as oppressive as the other one. We get a better response, but nonetheless, we are seeing much more conflict within our front line. That's something our staff are working with on a day-to-day basis. So coming back to stress, that is a factor. Workload is a factor, but I just want to repeat something that Joe said actually. It's not about just work stress, it's about stress in people's everyday lives actually, and a lot of the stress-related things that we see are actually outside of work or a partnership of the two things. So don't think of it just necessarily within the work context on stress and depression.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the report, and it's very informative. There's a couple of observations rather than questions. I mean, first of all, I would want to congratulate the council on the range of programmes that are offered. In particular, that leapt out to me was the financial budgeting one, but also the wills and power of attorney. Going back to what you said about the stresses of life, just having that opportunity to discuss that, because sadly more and more of us are finding ourselves in that situation. I think that's a really, really helpful resource to have. What I would say though, it would be useful to have some indication of uptake on those, perhaps in a future report, which is, I know has been mentioned by a couple of other councillors. What I'd also request is on 4.2, is that actually, if we could have, not now, but from now, if we could have historic figures, so we can see ourselves the change without having to refer back to previous reports, so we could have a table of the top three. I think it would also be useful to have, you had those figures ready. I'm interested in the cost, of course, but I'm interested in the number of days lost, and where you've got those that are on long-term sick, because obviously they are incredibly impactful. Is there a breakdown of the days lost and how that fits together? And again, if that could be done over time, and hopefully those figures would just be a question of putting it into the table. And then, of course, the overall cost, I think, would be very useful. So I'd just request that for future reference. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Following on from one of your points, Councillor Russell, as a newly elected councillor, I thought, great report, lots of things going on, but I wanted to see how it compared with other years. And I think one of the problems I had is the format from last year is actually quite different to this year. Also, the reasons are different and the percentages are different. So it was quite hard to kind of build a picture. It's not a criticism, but, you know, as a newly elected councillor, I just didn't want to take it on its own. And it's quite interesting, isn't it, that musculoskeletal and mental health comes quite high, but obviously stomach and obviously other low-level stuff. And I always think with hybrid working, it's a fantastic working environment. Obviously, with hybrid working, there might be a degree of masking for low-level sickness, which may reduce, but obviously longer-term sickness is obviously very different. It's really also following on from a couple of issues, is that why was it decided to do the wellbeing? Was there a particular problem with stress and mental health this year compared to last?
I think predominantly it was to do with the wellbeing toolkit, because we were looking to launch that, and to sort of complement that, we thought it would be a good idea to run a wellbeing week, to get, you know, to promote that toolkit and to get other initiatives with, you know, here within the town hall and Metcalfe depot, and get people coming to look at it really.
So just supplement that. How do we measure it? Obviously with long-term sick it's difficult, and obviously I looked at the hospital appointments as well, and that suggests to me that's some long-term people with hospital appointments and post-operations. So I presume that once that comes to that equation, what's the general level of sickness taken away? Do you do in those kind of comparative studies when you take away the real long-termers who we can't?
I would say that it's difficult really to do that, because it's not necessarily reflecting, you know, the true stats from the for the organisation. But what I would say is around sort of managing it. You know, as said in the report, we are reviewing all our policies and procedures, and one of the things that we are currently looking at is our absence management procedure, and that's hopefully going to be launched in the next couple of months. It was just a revised procedure, and we're going to be looking to do lunchtime sessions, bite-sized sessions with managers to promote that policy and the changes. So hopefully that will have an impact on absences as well, because managers will be sort of more confident managing it moving forward.
Yes.
Sorry, just quickly before you, Councillor, just to add to that point, just in terms of the wellbeing provision kind of being increased. Obviously, we were always had that in place, but obviously COVID, the pandemic, brought that into a sharper focus. But it's now obviously the long-term strategy to look after our employees' physical and mental kind of health. But the idea is that, it's a long-term strategy, and it's to help prevent some of the things that we've been talking about.
Yes, I want to actually progress on Councillor Johns's point about the abuse of staff, especially in the front-facing roles where you actually deal with the public. Now, this is of huge concern to me as well, as someone who has had roles in the public sector, and I wanted to ask about security awareness training for staff. If that's something we can offer? Because in some of my previous roles, I've also had this training as well, how to deal with the public, how to de-escalate situations, and how to ensure your own safety. And I was wondering if we can introduce these sessions, and or if we can encourage more sessions for staff.
Yeah, so our members of the contact centre are provided with similar types of training, conflict management, de-escalation, that kind of thing. It's obviously at a level, it's not an SIA level where you're actively getting involved. But there's also kind of protocols in place that when this is happening, how is it responded? So for instance, a note will come out, a manager will come out with that increased seniority with a view of trying to de-escalate at that point. We've also got a whole variety of different things in the background in terms of action that we can take thereafter as well. So that is all in place. What we haven't needed, I think, is the SIA type of level of intervention before. That hasn't been required, but I think we've had to take the view that the frequency of these events, the reassurance to staff, but also the potential risks involved, that now is the time to increase that capability.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to ask on 5.2, so thank you for the clarification on the points that have been raised. But I also wanted to just reiterate on Councillor Khan's mentioned about who we did we work with people in terms of banks and other institutions, but I did want to mention that some of the products you've mentioned are regulated products, and therefore even people within the banks can't give advice because they are regulated and they have to be approved to actually give the advice. So it's not as simple as you might think in terms of what we do. I just put my old banking hat on. I used to be in banking. Okay. Yeah. So an ISA, for example, is regulated.
So we do have financial advice coming in that staff can pick. It used to be called AVC Wise. It's called something else now, and actually it's an expanded portfolio of advice. So it ranges from pensions and right the way through to debt advice and everything else. So that is in place for staff.
Sorry, is there a panic button, or is it the fact that other staff have to observe it and then intervene, or is there somewhere they can call help for?
So there's a number of different things. Number one, staff aren't there in isolation so that they're supported. Number two, there are some strategically located panic buttons, especially within kind of private meeting room spaces. And thirdly, it's all kind of watched by CCTV, so we've got coverage no matter which happens.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to echo what others have said about the fact that you guys offer a really great broad range of support to your employees, and I think that's really great. And a lot of the questions I had have been asked, but one thing that stood out to me as a bit unusual is the SOS fobs, because it's not something I've run into before. So I was just wondering if there was anything in particular that prompted its introduction, and also on what basis they were allocated to 277 employees. Did people volunteer, or were they kind of identified as people that were at risk?
So basically, they were identified as people who loan work, so that might go out into the public's houses. Might be working, at weekends or late at night. Working on their own. So it's a device that is purely for people that, or employees that are loan working. Does that? Okay. Yeah.
Just to give you a bit more, I mean, the technology's been there for quite a while, probably about a decade. Other local authorities have used it, so it's not something new kind of in the sector, but it's new for us. And yeah, Joe's mentioned the kind of classification. So we have a lot of lone workers, but we had kind of, I think it was 4 categories of risk attached to the type of activity that each lone worker was doing. So the ones who are going into premises, doing inspections, interacting with people in kind of confrontational situations, like issuing parking tickets or something like that. So it was risk rated, and heads of service took into account the levels of risk and instructed which officers they wanted to have the devices. So we've rolled out. We're pretty much there the whole way now in terms of people carrying them.
Thanks for that. That answers my question.
Thank you. I just want to add something. Thank you very much for this officers. Joe and Sir Ryder doing a fantastic job, and our Crawley Borough Council is doing such a fantastic job looking after the staff. In this fast pace of life, it's very important for staff to be well looked after and respected in their workplace in order for them to prosper. And Crawley Borough Council's top priority is the well-being of their staff. If the staff are happy and they're working in a comfortable environment, they will want to work to their best ability. The company will also benefit from that as well, keeping the staff happy. They will want to come to work every day. They won't be, I'm sure people do get sick, but they will want to come to work every day, because even the workplace I work, if you're happy in a place, you want to stay there for a long time, and you don't really want to leave as well. So I think you're doing such a fantastic job, and I hope the staff take all the offers available to them. I would say that. Okay, thank you.
All committee members have the opportunity to speak, so I would like to thank the officers for their interesting report. Thank you. The recommendation is that the Commission receives the report, notes the progress with the actions being acknowledged, and documents by the officers documented. I'll ask for the Vice Chair to second, please.
Yes, I second that.
Thank you. The recommendations are agreed. Agreed? Great. Moving on to the appointments, and the Commission is asked to ratify the appointments as documented in the Annual Council on 24th of May. First, the Waste and Recycling Security Panel. Does the Commission approve the membership of the panels? Councillor Bushnell, Councillor Chariton, Jaddard, Councillor Lanza, Councillor Russell, and Councillor Yanni, with the Councillor Russell as being chair. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Now a representative is required for the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee. We have received a nomination from Councillor Kieran Khan. Is there a proposal for Councillor Khan? Councillor Russell? Okay. Is there a seconder? Councillor Asif. Okay. Are there any other nominations? No? So is that agreed? Agreed. So Councillor Khan has been appointed as HASC representative. The forthcoming decision list is featured on the agenda and also on the Council's website. I would ask the Democratic Services team to list those that have been referred. However, due to the pre-election period, there is a requirement to move the next meeting, which is scheduled on the 24th of June. This will now take place on the 23rd of July at 7 o'clock. Please ensure you update your on-look calendars, as the emails from Modern Gov will not do this, and are notifications only. Yep, I'll turn it on.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, as per the agendas, just to say, the following reports are now scheduled for Cabinet on the 24th of July. As the Chair has mentioned, and as the emails from Modern Gov, which went out this morning, have said, the next OSC meeting is scheduled for Tuesday the 23rd of July at 7 o'clock. So yes, please can you update your calendars, please? So the reports that have been referred already is the Housing Association Scrutiny Panel final report, Financial Outturn 23-24 Quarter 4, Treasury Management Outturn 23-24. The other reports that are going to Cabinet are Implementation of Procurement Act 2023, Forward Programme Key Procurements July to December, and Temporary Accommodation Acquisitions Programme. So of the three additional Cabinet reports, please can you let me know if you wish any reports to be referred, and following your training, for those that were able to attend the training, please can you have a think and take into account, will the OSC add value? Can the OSC influence and add to the debate? Does the report proposals go against existing policy? Where else will the item be considered? Is the referral good use of officer and councillor resources? Is it controversial? Or will an informal discussion with the report author resolve any queries? Any of those three, do you wish to refer as additional reports? Councillor Russell.
I'm willing to go with majority opinion on this, but I think there would be value in us seeing the temporary accommodation acquisitions programme and what's being planned there. I think there's expertise and experience on the panel that would add value to having a look at that. He says looking at Councillor Hillier and others, the experience.